I wanted to talk about these guys a couple of days ago, but then, of course, the big San Diego Comic-Con news dropped, and that whole weekend just totally consumed anything that the Transformers Slag podcast was going to be talking about, because that's what everyone wanted to hear about and clamor about. And I mean, between Unicron and Micromasters and a camera team, it all was all-consuming. But this is something that when I first saw it, I was really excited and was happy that it's going to be happening, at least in some shape or form. And it's something that I've always really enjoyed about the Transformers side of its trademark history and stuff. And that is of its famous rivalry between them and the Gobots. And years later, discovering, I believe it was 1997, I was standing in one of my favorite anime stores, just waiting to play Samurai Showdown at the arcade, and my eye caught a cover of a VHS that was on rent at that store of Machine Robo, and going like, man, what's the story with this? And then looking at the cover and going like, wait a minute, that looks like Phytor and Screwhead. Like, what's going on here? Like, is this like some kind of, Gobot anime, and they stole the molds from Gobots? At that time in '97, my knowledge of the history of Gobots was pretty limited, because I was still like, in '97, I was just jumping back into my hardcoreness with Transformers, with Beast Wars, and reintroducing myself to G1 that has been absent in my life since like that of, let's say, '93. And I just learned so much about Machine Robo after watching that VHS, and then like going down the rabbit hole online, that I just fell in love with that brand and the dark history of Gobots, that really, in a lot of ways, that if it was ported properly, could have really been a contender for Transformers in a whole different way. So this is Machine Robo. Machine Robo was what Gobots used to be. In 1982, it was a Bandai line that had its own anime that was pretty awesome, kind of violent at times. And it spawned a whole franchise that still, in a lot of ways, still exists to this day, at least in the Japanese side of things, when they went from Machine Robo to CG Robo to Machine Robo Battle Hackers, and then they did Machine Robo Rescue, which was also had its own anime in the modern era, and then you had Mugenbein Machine Robo. There's just so much of that brand on Bandai's side that still exists in some shape or form, and creativity of a robot that turns into something else. So that being said, sooner or later, we're going to get some cool third-party Machine Robo stuff, and it looks like good old MechFanToys are the ones that are standing up to do that. And I like what they're doing here, because they're going with the kind of what's popular now with third party, in that of more of the pocket size, legend scale, or whatever Transformers. In this case, they're going one step even smaller, going with the Micromaster scale. So we have here from MechFanToys, we have MachRob Challenge, a combination of Machine Robo and, I guess in this case, Challenge of the Gobots. And it's funny, because when you shorten Machine Robo, you get Mach instead of, I guess they didn't want to call it MacRob, because that just sounds kind of weird. But MachRob Challenge, and this is their MachRob Challenge, MR01 Leader King and MR02 Coco Weido. One thing that I find funny with this is because they went with the whole MR01, MR02. Gobots and Machine Robo were infamous for one of the few toy lines that actually had quite the extensive numbering system, which was also present near the trademark of the toy, somewhere stamped on it and on the plastic. And almost every Machine Robo / Gobot toy has one of these numberings on them, whether it be MR or MRT, meaning MRT Machine Robo Tonka, which would be Gobot toys that were made specifically for the American Tonka toy line. But that being said, so they went with the numbering system too, although the numbering of MR01 and MR02 are incorrect to the characters that are being represented here. But that's, nothing too important. It's more just for an ability to keep track of what they're doing with their third-party stuff. So let's go to MR01. We got Leader King. I guess it's pretty obvious. This was probably the best way to start, with that of what we know as Leader 1. He was known as MR25 Eagle Robo in Machine Robo, and he turned into an F-15 Eagle jet. And, I mean, he looks great here. They obviously are going with a more cartoon-accurate design. They didn't go with the toy-accurate design. They didn't go with something that's like, let's say, how it looked in the Machine Robo anime, but they're going more with the Hanna-Barbera Gobots kind of look. I guess they really know the audience that they're trying to market this to. They're really going for the American audience that obviously has some kind of nostalgic connection to the Hanna-Barbera cartoon and how, Leader 1 had that specific look to him. And what's cool is that these are Micromaster scale. There's nice photos of them next to the Siege Micromasters to give a good comparison. And what's also interesting is that even though that they're Micromaster scale, they have slightly more articulation in some cases, at least in the case of Leader 1 here, because it looks like Leader 1 actually has a head neck joint to turn his head, which up to this point, unless a Micromaster had that as part of their transformation, it was not something that was present. It was not something that was available to them. But otherwise, it looks like it has more of that standard Micromaster articulation that's common now with the current Micromasters. With Siege, Siege now has ball joints on those areas where they used to be pin and or rivet with the original 80s and early 90s Micromasters. So really like what they're doing here. The sculpt looks great, especially since Leader 1 is already a gray character with a few yellow accents or gold accents somewhere. So you look at the Leader 1, you got a pretty good idea how he's going to look already, and he looks pretty spectacular. The second one they have here is MR02 Coco Weido, and this one here is, of course, MR20's Porsche Robo, also known as Crasher, the female evil renegade. And just like I mentioned before with Leader 1 here, this one is going for a more show accuracy. Again, because if you looked at the original Porsche Robo, which was a Porsche 956, I believe it was, the Le Mans edition, if you looked at that original toy from both on the Machine Robo and the Gobots side, had a very generic kind of robot-y kind of face with the visor and everything. Didn't really suggest that it was a female character or even a male character. It just kind of had a very robotic face, where obviously the show model that was done for the Hanna-Barbera cartoon had something very more reminiscent of that of a female character, a crazy female character. And I always dug Crasher. And so they went for something more like that, give it a more human, face and give that kind of design. I like this a lot. I hope they go with the pink kind of hue for the face for the robot mode, because this one, obviously, these are both done in prototype colors, so we don't know what the final colors will be. But if the paint budget is there to really give a lot of detail into the face to really make it pop, makes a big difference. Especially I think it was 2008, 2009 when they did a whole bunch of repaints of some of the old Classics Transformer toys. And they took Classics Mirage and they repainted it as Fracture. And it was clearly an homage to Crasher from the Gobots. And they even made sure to paint the face pink and stuff. It was really appreciated. And so I kind of hope that they kind of do the same thing here and keep those little iconic colors that really make the character pop. We have shots here of also the alt modes. And the alt modes look great. But I feel like in the case of let's say the Crasher, the Coco Weido, it looks like there's some kind of intent probably for repaints down the line or repaints in the future for these molds so they could get more mileage out of them, because Crasher is more known for that larger Le Mans spoiler for downforce. This one's kind of absent here. I find that when you look at the MR02 here, Crasher, I get like this Micromaster Tailspin kind of comparison. Micromaster Tailspin was also a very similar kind of Le Mans car. So I feel like they probably could do this toy in those colors, and then they could probably repaint it and do some Micromasters to fill the gap if Hasbro doesn't do that, which I appreciate a lot, because that's something a lot of people would really dig, is that if Hasbro just kind of stops doing these Micromasters after Siege is done, this is something that mech toy fans could really step in and fill in the gaps for people's displays. Because, I mean, look, a lot of these Micromasters either came in packs of 4, like teams, or there was Micromaster combiners. And, we were given through the Siege line stuff in sets of 2, and some of them are getting their 3rd members, but not their 4th. So I really appreciate that there looks like there could be an attempt afterwards, if they want to repaint these into some of the Micromasters that we're missing for our display. And again, that's what third party should be, is to really fill the gap of something that potentially Hasbro will not do. And I like that a lot. I mean, again, going through Machine Robo's history from the 600 series, as we call them. 600 series was everything that we considered the standard Gobot size today, which is that, I guess we could call it the 2.5-inch Gobot figures. They came from what was called the 600 series in Japan for Machine Robo. They were called the 600 series because they were 600 yen to be purchased at the time in these little boxes, similar to like Matchbox boxes for old people like me. But yeah, it's just, these look really good. These look really, really good. I'm really excited about these. I hope that there's going to be more. I mean, pocket-sized Transformers are really a big thing now. When TFCon just passed, one of the biggest sellers of third-party stuff was all that pocket-size, legend scale kind of third-party stuff that people are digging from, let's say, Iron Factory. So if mech toy fans, they could go this route and really make something interesting. And I wonder now, because now that Bandai is out of the game in America in terms of toys and everything like that, Bandai of America is gone now. It really makes me wonder how that affects the ability for Hasbro to make stuff now that their competition on that side of the ocean is gone. Because it used to be, for the longest time, Hasbro just had the trademarks of the names of Machine Robo, Gobot characters, but they couldn't do anything really from a design standpoint. They could take a character that turns into a forklift, they could give it the MR numbers on it, but they couldn't really do the Bandai sculpt because they had to play it safe. They didn't want to get sued. And I mean, there's a whole history between Bandai of America and Hasbro kind of like blocking each other when it comes to bringing over Machine Robo and everything, but that's a whole other story. But the point is that now that Bandai's gone, I wonder, could potentially Hasbro now do some good homages to Machine Robo and Gobots and not have to worry about Bandai anymore because they're not there? In the same way that I kind of look how Bandai for years was responsible for the Power Ranger brand and those designs. And now here we are today, and Hasbro's now making the toys, and they're doing those Bandai designs. So I'm really curious about that, and I wonder if that could potentially in the future open up opportunities for Hasbro to maybe finally give us a Generations Leader 1, a Generations Crasher, a Generations Fightor, or if they even want to be even more, I guess you could call it bold, and go the Machine Robo route. And, obviously the names are not as interesting. Jet Robo, Drill Robo, and, but you could at least maybe keep those Gobot trademarks that you guys paid for all those years ago, but use the history of Machine Robo's lore and kind of paint it that way too. I mean, we just had a Gobots comic book, which was done by Tom Spicoli, and it was really, really good, but in that retro kind of way. And I mean, it was a different take on how Gobots could be done in the modern era. But at the same time, I don't see it being a way that Hasbro would want to market their characters, because it was really written for like an older audience that had a nostalgia for a weird kind of stuff. Either way, I mean, I'm just rambling here because I just love Machine Robo and Gobots. Yeah, let me know what you think. Let me know if McRob Challenge, this MechFans line, if they could do another pair of Machine Robo Gobot characters, which two would you want it to be? I mean, I always lean right away to, I love Vanguard, aka Vanguardian from TFCon. Vanguard has always been a favorite Gobot character of mine. That's why he kind of ended up being one of the TFCon exclusive. Totally shameless of me, but that's here and or nor there. Really wanted to have a modern version of him. And what would be another one? Let me look at my Machine Robo shelf. Oh, silly me. I'd love to have Jet Robo. Fightor. Love him. So I'd love those two. I'd love Vanguard and Jet, aka Fightor, to be done in this scale too. That would be the next pair that I would want. But let me know what pair you would want. What two guys would you want from this MachRob challenge from Mech Toy Fans?